Alright, we're gonna go over how to cut cards. So I guess it differs for the Windows user. Relatively similar with the verbatim settings, but if you have a Mac, this is gonna be the tutorial is going to be relatively more straightforward. So I'm going to try to make this short and simple. So first things first, open up Microsoft Word, and then open up Debate. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you how I want you, especially this works for the Windows, but this is going to be particularly easier for the Mac just because that's what I have, how to format your cards and how I want each like sort of font and each style size. Okay, so what you do is you go up here to your home tab, and here where you have your styles, you're gonna right click it, or two finger click if you have a Mac, and click modify, and then you want it to look like this. So I use Cambria just because I think Cambria is a bit fancier and it's just not plain. However, Calibri is the standard. I strongly recommend using either of these two. Do not use Times New Roman. That's like scientifically proven to be significantly more difficult to read than other fonts. So use either Calibri or Cambria. If you want to be just like homogenous with me, then I recommend Cambria. So your normal card should be 11, and 11 not underlined, not bolded, and you want to click add to template when you modify it and click OK, right? So your normal is pretty much going to be anything that's not formatted in your card. This is going to be your credentials and your credentials and the unhighlighted and underlined portions of your card. Then you have your citations. You're gonna right click, modify. Same thing. It should be Cambria 13 bold. Underlining is optional. I personally don't underline mine, but you can if it makes it easier to see or distinguish it between the other parts of the credentials. But bold should be fine. Click add the template. Okay. No spacing should be the same as normal card. Cambria 11. Add to templates. No bold, no underline. Your underline should be Cambria 11 and underlined. Add templates. Okay. And then you don't really have to worry about your blocks, your hats, or your pockets. That's pretty much going to align with the normal card. And then you make sure your tag modified. Your tag is 13 bold, not underlined. Add to templates, automatically update. Click OK. And then your emphasis. You want to modify that. Make sure it's Cambria too. Like mine wasn't Cambria. Make sure it's bold, underlined, and add to templates. And one last thing before we continue is you want to go to add-ons right here. Add-ons, if you're on a Mac, hit the verbatim settings. Click the verbatim settings. You want to go here to format, and then make sure emphasis has this box is checked. Click save, and pretty much what that does, it's going to do this little thing for the MacBook where it like opens up a new Word document, and then it gives you that. You can click OK. So what we just did is we made it where your emphasis, the words you want to emphasize and around maybe like the important words, the important phrase of a card, it's boldened, and it's also has a box around it. So I'm pretty much gonna tell you what your card should look like. So this is gonna be your tag. Your citations, I'm very specific about how I want my citations. This is the standard level citation, and it's what, because there, for example, the NSDA rule says that there are certain things that you have to have, and if you just follow whatever I tell you now, you're always going to have that. You're always going to meet every sort of citation requirement. So the first thing is the author's last name and year. Then you're going to put a dash. I know this kind of differs from what I've told you previously, but I want you guys to follow this because this is sort of the Northwestern standard, and it's how I'm going to be cutting cards next year. So I want it to be homogenous with everyone that we're sharing prep with. So like you don't like get like you don't compile a speech doc based on preparation that was collected from different people, and you end up having like a whole like it's your pre-speech doc is like discombobulated. You want it to be universal. So your last name, you're gonna have your author's full name, comma, credentials. So this is like PhD, their degree, where they work at, where they're employed at. And then you want to immediately follow by the year, the full date of publication. Uh, Usually in this format. Okay, and then that is followed by the title in quotation marks, and then the title is followed by the publisher, and then the publisher is followed by the page number or numbers, and then that's followed by the URL, and then the date it was accessed, and then your initials to show who's doing what prep. And that's it. We're not doing the parentheses anymore. I think it's kind of ugly and not really appealing to the eyes. And I just get really nitpicky about this stuff. And then you have your card. Let's go ahead and, okay, we're good. So card text. So, whoa. We're actually gonna cut a card here really quickly. But I just want to show you sort of what it looks like before. So I'm gonna just make a few copies of this just to pretend to, I guess, simulate us having a real card. I normally always prep in draft view just because web layout has it like a full screen. It's really hard to read, but if you have in draft, it's like condenses and it gives you like this big chunk of space over here. So when you're reading through when you're cutting a card, so the tag is obviously going to be in tag. The last name and year, which is the citation, is going to be in cite. And then, wait a minute. Why is my tag not in Cambria? There we go. Okay. So when you are reading, you pretty much get the useful pieces of information underlined. And then the most useful parts is going to be highlighted. And I prefer yellow just because yellow is like the standard. There's a neat little verbatim function that you can do. Let's say you are prepping with someone, or you have people using different fonts, different highlights. There's something called standardized highlights where you pick what highlight color you want. So let's say I want to change it all to green. You go here to verbatim add-ins, and I believe it's so yeah. So you click this little the two A's, the format menu in the add-on section, and then there is no standardized highlight function in the Mac. I know this uni highlight. So it's called standardized highlight on the PC, but for the Mac it's called uni highlight, and you click run and it changes everything that's highlighted in a document to whatever color you have. So it makes it easier to read. Okay, so then that's pretty much a card in a nutshell. What you can then do is you can click any portion of the card and click, this is optional. Let's say it's a bit difficult to read because you have a bunch of small text and then highlighted text. What you can do is you can click any portion of the card and then click shrink. And then ta-da, it shrinks everything that's not in the highlight font to an 8-point font. So let's look at the emphasis button again. Let's say you want to emphasize something that you're gonna say. You're gonna highlight it and then click emphasize, and you can see it makes it emphasis. You can see it makes it in bold, and it puts it in a box. So let's see what you do if you're actually cutting a piece of evidence from an article or something. So article Trump. We'll cut an article about Trump. Okay, so you find an article, New York Times, decently credible source. What you do is you want to select the piece. So you read through the article. Oh, this is going to make a pretty good piece of uniqueness evidence. So what you do is you'll select the portion of the card or the entire article. You usually don't ever want to like select portions of a
select portions of a paragraph. For example, I would never cut only this. I would only, if let's say I only wanted to stop highlighting right here, I would still cut the entirety of the paragraph and just highlight as needed. So let's say I only want to cut this much. What I do is I would Command C, Control C, or just right click, copy. So what you think you should do is just Control V or right click paste. But what you should do instead, because if you just paste it like that, what happens is that it pastes it in the format of the actual article, right? And it gets all wonky because it throws out the formatting that you already had before. So what you should do instead is you should click here add-ins and then click F2 paste, and what that does is it pastes in the verbatim format. You could either do that by clicking this button right here, or you can just press F2, the function button, and the F2 button, and it pastes. So then what you then want to do is you see all these little the spaces between your paragraphs. You don't want it there because it kind of makes the card look wonky. So what you then do after that is you highlight what you just pasted. You go to add-ins and you either press this button, the condense button, or FN3. FN3, and then what it does is it condenses it and takes out all the enters or the returns without you having to backspace through all of them. So we have our piece of evidence. So we read through it, and let's say I read through it, and this is the portion that, like, I found what portion I wanted to underline. As I'm reading through it, what I would do is I first select the first part that I want to underline. I click underline, and then instead of, my bad, this is still not in, it's in Calibri, not in Cambria. Okay, so then instead of having to do that each time, there's this neat little thing called the format painter right here. I believe on the Windows PC it actually has a button that's titled Format Painter. So what you do is you click a format that you want to continue to use. So we want to continue highlighting, so we'd put our cursor where we already have the format, the desired format, and then you double click Format Painter. You don't want to single click it, because if you single click it, it only allows you to do it for one other selection. But if you double click it, it allows you to do it for multiple selections. So then what you can do is, instead of having to highlight and then click underline, you can just highlight as you go because you hit the format painter. So I want to underline this sentence, this sentence, this sentence. Awesome. Now I've read through the underlined parts. I know what part I want to highlight. So you can also do the same thing with the format painter. You can click a portion that's underlined and highlighted. You can you double click format painter, and then you just highlight as you go. Verbatim sentence. Oh, the irony. Okay. And then let's say I found some parts that I want to emphasize. And then if there's more parts I want to emphasize, double click format painter. Alrighty. And then we're going to go ahead and tag our piece of evidence. Remember, your piece, or what I can go ahead and do is I can click in the middle of the card, and then go to add-ins, click shrink, so we can shrink the text that we're the unimportant text. So we're going to go ahead and tag our piece of evidence. Remember, your tag is pretty much a summary, the argument you're making slash or a summary of the piece, the argument you're making and slash or a summary of the evidence you have. So I guess I don't really want to come up with the new tag because I haven't really read the article. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the title just as a default, because the title of the article does summarize the actual article, hence the word title. So instead of just copying and pasting, I'm gonna copy and then F2 FN. And then what you do, a neat little trick about the tag function, instead of having to select everything and hit tag, if you just put your cursor in anywhere in the sentence or the line, and you hit tag, it automatically does the entire sentence for you. And then we're gonna go ahead and put our credentials. What I like to do is, instead of going back and forth between the articles, a couple tricks you can do. You can, let me go ahead and close this out. You can split your screen. and then you'll be able to. If you don't know how to split your screen for the Mac, you hold down the little green expand button, and then you get this little split function. Click here, drag one to one side, and you drag to the other side, and you can just like go along. Or what I like to do is since everything is gonna be pretty much on the document in itself, what I do is I put my citation in the URL. I put my citation in the URL bar, and then I copy and paste it to the document. So I actually have a few authors here. So what you would do? This is I guess this is a good teaching material. So what you would do if you have if you have two authors, you would write just both their last names, Apuzzo and Becker, the year, and then you just put the credentials for them. But since you have multiple authors, what you can do is you can put one author's last name, et al. It means and more / and all to symbolize that there are other authors, and you don't have to say that's Apuzzo, Becker, Goldman, Halberman, and 17. Apuzzo et al. 17. And then I'm going to find the credentials for all of my authors. So Matt Apuzzo, Joe Becker, Adam Goldman, Maggie. And worst case scenario, if you can't find the credentials for the author, you can just put like an journalist at the New York Times. But I did find the credentials for my author. So here we have an American journalist, won the Pulitzer Prize. And you most likely always, a good rule of thumbs is to always put the educational background and the occupation, but I'm going to be a bit lazy here and only put the occupation. So that's the first author, Joe Becker. Wow, they're all award-winning journalists. Interesting. Well, they're not all, just the first two. Wow, first three. Okay, what are the odds that the fourth one is also an award-winning journalist? Nope. She's just a political correspondent. Okay, once you get the credentials, next is the date, the full date. So that's 07/10/2017. Okay, another thing I forgot to say. Since this is a uniqueness evidence and the date of the evidence really matters because, for example, the political climate is always changing from kind of politics to that. The evidence needs to be specific to the day, not the year. Instead of putting 17, I would actually put the year, the month, and the date it was written. So it'd be Apuzzo et al. 7/10 or 7/10. And then I have the year, the article title, published by the New York Times, and then URL. What you can do is you can Command A to select everything. I'm really good with hotkeys. Command A to select everything, Command X to copy, Command R to refresh. Put your cursor right here, hit spacebar, Command V to paste, and then you would have everything with your URL. Access today is July 10th, so 07/10/17. Then my initials, since I go to Northwestern University, it'd be NU//NO. And then you Control A, Command A, Command X, and then Command V. And then I have my credentials here. But one last thing, and then you select what you want to select, cite. But one last thing, since I have multiple authors as opposed to one, what I want you to do is I want you to select uh, select the author's name, each author's name, and like their basic credentials. So like not the entire thing, but the part that says like professor of law, and you want to underline that. And this way, when the credentials are questioned in the round, you don't have to like look through that big chunk of text to find it. Uh, you can easily find it. And this is only when you have uh, multiple authors. Great, and that is Card Cut in a nutshell. That's exactly how I want you to format your cards. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up, and I'll be more than happy to answer them.